Hello and welcome to Lesson 12, Forensic Psychology, Restorative Justice. Restorative justice is a relatively modern theory of dealing with offending behaviour, and it's emerged largely out of the ineffectual ability of systems such as token economy to reduce offending rates. The key principle of restorative justice is to restore the situation that occurred prior to the act, the criminal act, the offending behaviour. And it's really supposed to consider the victim as well. What will satisfy the victim? And often abstract punishment in some form of prison facility, that doesn't really help the victim progress and move beyond the event. So the key aims are rehabilitation. Victims get to explain the impact that the crime has had on their own life, which is something that they were not able to do in the traditional custodial system. It allows offenders to learn to empathise with those that they have offended against. And we know that empathy is a key factor in avoidance of criminal behaviour, offending behaviour and so forth. Those with lower empathy tend to commit more crimes, for example. The offender is encouraged to take responsibility for their action, which is not fully the case in traditional custodial systems. When you go to prisons, many prisoners will profess their innocence, and they're never really challenged to accept the harm that they've caused. And this means that the offender actually becomes involved in their own rehabilitation. Atonement for wrongdoing. So offenders may offer concrete compensation, so financial restitution, or they may do unpaid work or something. And that's tangible. That's a tangible measure of something they're willing to restore, pay back. Most importantly, the psychological atonement, simply by demonstrating guilt, helps the offender get past and start to understand the reasons for their own offending behaviour. They also understand the effects of their behaviour on the victim, and the victim has the opportunity to express their distress and how the crime made them feel. The offender can then work with the victim to develop empathy in this safe environment, and hopefully this will lead to less reoffending later on. So from the victim's perspective, it can reduce their sense of victimisation, and they no longer feel powerlessness, that they have something they can say. They can confront this offender. Furthermore, the victim may develop a greater understanding of the offender by listening to their account. Why did they commit crimes? Many crimes seem obviously black and white. If someone steals, or they rob you, or they murder someone, there's often clear motive, but we don't often delve into the background of what led to those circumstances in the first place. And this can help reduce the victim's sense of being harmed as well. So it's potentially beneficial for the victim psychologically and sometimes physically as well. Wachtel and Cold, 2003, built a theoretical framework. So their starting point for restorative justice is relationships and not punishment. So it's the relationship between the victim and the offender, not punishing the offender arbitrarily or in isolation. Justice then requires the harm done to people and their relationships to be healed. And this cannot be done through punishment. So often we take a prisoner off, we put them in prison, and that's the last we hear of them until they come out and commit another crime. But it needs to be more joined up. Justice involves various stakeholders, not just the victim either. They consider a system to be restorative. If one stakeholder is involved, then it's partly restorative. If two, then it's mostly. If all three stakeholders are involved, then it's a fully restorative program. And if government provides compensation for a crime, then it's not restorative at all. So let's consider a scenario. If someone breaks into your home and steals your laptop, and your laptop is worth £500, in a single stakeholder situation, where the individual, just involving the victim, that is a partly restorative system. If the victim and the offender are involved, then that's mostly. And if the victim, offender, and some representative of society as a whole, the police, whoever it may be, or the civil community are involved, then it becomes more fully restorative. The offender could pay back the cost of that laptop, return the laptop, restore it, or there could be some other sort of compensation. But if someone steals your laptop and then you claim money from an insurance agency to pay for it, that's not justice, according to Watchtool and McCold. So here's a typology, a diagram that shows you how this restorative works. And there's lots of different things like victim support circles, therapeutic communities who can all be involved in this restorative program. Pause it, have a look, and see if there's anything that leaps out that you're not sure about. And that might formulate a question that you ask later. These are the various stakeholders that interact, and this is what produces restorative justice. So to be involved in full restorative, as we know, all three stakeholders need to be involved: society, the offender, and the victim. The social discipline window is another way of viewing the effects of punishment or dealing with offending behaviour. And Watchtool and McCold create this window to represent the choices available for social discipline. And this is one they recommend that we always aim for. So we've got a punitive response in which the offender is punished. We have a neglectful response where the offender is ignored, a permissive one in which the offender is tacitly supported, and then a restorative, and that's one that we always want. The dimensions along the axes are control and support, so we get full control and full support in the restorative window. Here we have control but no support, and then obviously low control and lack of support. Another type of restorative justice, what are referred to as peace circles. So the aim here is to foster an environment of respect where the community offers support to the victim of the crime, but also welcomes the offender into the circle to enable mutual understanding. It's very similar to the key principles of restorative justice. A talking piece is passed from one person to another, so it's kind of like a stick or something that they hold, and that means the person can speak uninterrupted. There is a keeper whose task is to maintain an atmosphere of respect. They'll challenge any negativity and they'll try and keep things peaceful. These circles are quite common in schools now, especially with difficult behaviour, where the involved stakeholders will sit around in a circle and they will discuss their feelings about a particular incident. Restorative justice, is it suitable for all crimes? Well, one solution is